There's no question this election cycle has seen a bevy of radical media double standards. Donald Trump's sexual harassment assault accusers, they've been treated as headline news. Allegations about intimidation of sexual harassment and assault victims by Hillary Clinton, those have been utterly ignored. Trumpian bigotry against a so-called Mexican judge dominated the news cycle for weeks. Clinton-connected bigotry against Catholics went completely unnoticed. We heard for a full week about a Miss Universe contestant Trump allegedly called Miss Piggy back in 1997 when I was 13 years old. We've heard very little about Hillary Clinton's perverse dealings with the media and the FBI. We've heard for months about Trump's toxic impact on politics. We've had precious few headlines about the firebombing of a GOP campaign headquarters in North Carolina, or shattered windows at other GOP operations, or the repeated violent attempts to disrupt Trump rallies or hurt Trump fans. Part of this is the allure of novelty. Trump's a new figure in politics. Every bit of information now hitting the newsstand seems fresh. Meanwhile, Hillary's been in the politics for decades, which means every allegation of corruption and nastiness merely reinforces general perceptions about her. But there's something else afoot here. Most Americans simply expect Democrats to act like Hillary Clinton and to get away with it. Take, for example, the new allegations by James O'Keefe that Clinton-associated parties are involved in promoting voter fraud and violence at Trump rallies. O'Keefe's Project Veritas went undercover with a Democratic operative who openly admitted to encouraging people to rent cars in order to drive to precincts and vote illegally. You use Shell, said the operative. Use Shell companies. Cars come in from one company, the paychecks come from another. There's no bus involved, so you can't prove it's en masse, so it doesn't tip people off, unquote. The operative also admitted to attempting to provoke violence at Trump events. Quote, you put people in the line, at the front of the line, which means they have to get there at 6 in the morning because they have to get in front of the rally, so that when Trump comes down the rope line, they're the ones asking him the question in front of the reporter because they're pre-placed there. The activist admitted a 69-year-old woman supposedly beaten up by a Trump supporter was actually working for him. That event generated major national headlines at the time. Quote, arrest warrant issued in assault of 69-year-old female protester at North Carolina Trump rally, blared the Washington Post. 69-year-old says she was cold-cocked by Trump supporter during protests, said Mediaite. Video shows aftermath of a 69-year-old woman punched at a Trump rally, reported the LA Times. None of this seems to rate national attention, however. Has that 69-year-old woman, Shirley Teeter, appeared on national news anytime this week after these revelations? Apparently not. How about the firebombing of the Trump offices? Nope. And when's the next time Hillary will be asked about her position on voter ID, now that it appears some associated with her campaign have been deliberately flouting voting law? Now, some of this is due to the media's leftism, but a good deal of it is due to the fact that corruption, regularized over time, simply becomes background noise. Nobody expects anything from Democrats. Americans have accepted the Democratic Party as the party of voter fraud and political violence since the 1960s. They've accepted Hillary Clinton as the candidate of manipulation and corruption since the 1990s. Democratic evils are normal. Republican evils are an ever-present source of news and interest, which is terrible for the country. All corruption should be shocking. The fact it isn't helps explain why the 2016 election has become a competition in pursuing new lows. The old lows just don't seem to register anymore. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Okay, tons to get to here on The Ben Shapiro Show. But first, we have to say hello to our friends over at Lyft. So Lyft is a car ride app, and my wife uses Lyft all the time. They make sure that everybody who works for Lyft has a car that's brand new. Everything has to be, I think, within the last 5 or 6 years. All of their drivers are really vetted for safety concerns, which is really important to me. My wife is a doctor, which means she comes home late at night, and when she comes home late at night and she's too tired to drive herself, I always urge her to use Lyft in order so she can get home safely, and she does, and it's always been a great experience, which is different from some of the other car ride apps, which she's had some weirdos up front. So Lyft makes sure that you don't have the weirdos. You can also tip in the app, which leads to happier drivers. People like driving for Lyft, which means that you get better drivers and happier drivers, and they're rated after every ride, so only the best people stick around, so creepy dudes are dropped by Lyft. Right now, Lyft is offering our listeners a special deal. You get 3 free rides, up to $10 each, a $30 value, if you go to their website and you enter promo code Shapiro or use their Lyft app, the free Lyft app today. Enter that promo code Shapiro in the payment section, and you get 3 free rides up to $10 each, which is a great deal. That's a $30 value. Promo code Shapiro. That allows them to know that you are helping us out by working with our advertisers, but it also gives you that $30 deal, which is just fantastic. Lyft, it's the best rideshare app on the market. I highly recommend it. So does my wife. And because safety and cleanliness are my chief concerns when I use a rideshare app, Lyft is the one that I use. Okay, so last night was the third and final debate. The apocalypse is finally coming close to an end. We're approaching the end of this routine. And here are some basic overall thoughts on the debate. Number one, everybody sort of gets graded on their own terms, as I've said. Trump gets graded along Trumpian terms. Hillary gets graded along Hillary terms. If we were to have an objective standard of quality, Trump sucked and so did Hillary. Any objective standard, they were both garbage. Hillary's a liar. Hillary is robotic. Every so often, Hillary breaks into her evil clown from the woods grin, which means that you know that she's lying. Trump implodes on a frequent basis because he's a ticking time bomb. He's sort of like a piece of aluminum you put in the microwave, and every so often the thing just fries. That's Trump in debate. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Hillary also doesn't know what she's talking about, but she is sort of mechanical in the way she doesn't know what she's talking about. So it's a fight between two awful human beings. I would say that Trump won the first third of the debate. Second third of the debate, Trump sort of collapsed over Putin. And final third of the debate, the only thing that matters is the controversy that's dominating the headlines today. This is totally driven by Trump. It's Trump's own fault. All of the headlines last night and this morning are about Trump saying that he's not going to accept the results of the election, or that he may not accept the results of the election. The only reason that was even asked to him is because he spent the last week talking about how the election is rigged. And the reason he spent the last week talking about how the election is rigged is because he knows he's going to lose at this point, and he's trying to convince people the reason he's going to lose is because of the media, and it's because of voter fraud, and it's because of Never Trump. And so therefore, in order to fight all those people, he'll need $10 a month from you for Trump TV. And we'll get to the fact that Donald Trump essentially launched Trump TV in the middle of the debate last night. Seriously, like online, he launched Trump TV. The slogan is "Hair and Unbalanced." So it's that's actually going to be a thing. But the debate itself, I was slightly surprised by the debate. Number one, I thought Trump performed better than I expected him to. That's number one. I thought that he actually had some good points to make. He always makes them awkwardly, but he made some good points. I thought that he had a couple attacks on Hillary Clinton that were effective. I thought Chris Wallace, the moderator, was spectacular. I thought that most of the effective attacks on Hillary Clinton were actually pushed by Chris Wallace, and then Trump followed in his wake because Chris Wallace was asking decent, significant questions of both candidates. It was surprising to me that Trump didn't completely blow up. I was expecting him, as you know from yesterday's podcast, to turn in a debate performance where he dropped Bill Clinton's illegitimate kid or alleged illegitimate kid and went after Hillary Clinton with National Enquirer rumors. That may still happen as we enter the last couple weeks of the election cycle, but he didn't do it last night, and that helps shore up the sort of fading Republican base that is not enthused about him. So that's smart of him. I don't think it won him any new voters. I don't think it won her any new voters, but it's worthy of examination because whenever we look at these debates, it's worthy of examining what should have been said, what could have been said, and where people are fibbing, because I think that the truth and facts still matter, even though we're living in a post-truth, post-factual era. So let's begin. It starts off last night, and Hillary Clinton says that she's asked about the Supreme Court. And here is Hillary Clinton's awful, evil take on what the Supreme Court is supposed to do.
We stand up and basically say the Supreme Court should represent all of us. That's how I see the court, and the kind of people that I would be looking to nominate to the court would be in the great tradition of standing up to the powerful, standing up on behalf of our rights as Americans.
Okay, this perspective on the court is actually evil. The judicial branch is not designed to, quote unquote, stand up to the powerful. It's not designed to be in the great tradition of representing all Americans. It's not a representative body. That's the point of having people appointed for life. The idea for the Supreme Court is it represents the Constitution, not the people. You want a representative body, you look to Congress. You want a representative of the people, you look to these two crap shows on your screen. But if you actually want a group of people who are supposed to stand up for the Constitution, that's what the Supreme Court theoretically was for. You know, I wrote a whole paper. I've been trying to dig it up, folks. I get a lot of questions about this. I've been trying to dig up my paper from law school where I talked about why Marbury versus Madison was a perversion of the constitutional structure. But, you know, the idea, at least in theory, is the Supreme Court is supposed to stand up for the text of the Constitution. It's actually what she's saying here when I say it's evil. When she says that the courts are supposed to be sort of a super moral legislature standing above us and dictating what's good and bad, that's nasty and it's evil. And when she says that the job of the courts is to stand up to the powerful, that's actually immoral. Okay, the job of the courts is to do justice. It's not to slap down people because they're powerful. Sometimes powerful people are right. Sometimes they're wrong. It's not their job to be Marxist redistributors of justice. So what she's saying here is really quite terrible. Trump gives a pretty good answer by contrast on the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court, it's what it's all about. Our country is it's just so imperative that we have the right justices. Something happened recently where Justice Ginsburg made some very, very inappropriate statements toward me and toward a tremendous number of people, many, many millions of people that I represent. And she was forced to apologize, and apologize she did. But these were statements that should never, ever have been made. We need a Supreme Court that, in my opinion, is going to uphold the Second Amendment and all amendments, but the Second Amendment, which is under absolute siege.
So eventually he got around to saying that he would appoint somebody who would actually interpret the Constitution according to the founders' meaning, which is the proper answer, but not until he gets off his chest that he's mad at Ruth Bader Ginsburg for saying mean things about him. I mean, because this is who our candidates are, because this entire campaign has just been a series of Groundhog Day suicide attempts by the American people. I mean, it's just like we're all jumping in the bathtub and lighting that toaster and tossing it in. Okay, so Hillary Clinton is a congenital liar, so she decided to lie about the Second Amendment at that point. Here's what she said about the Heller versus D.C. decision.
You mentioned the Heller decision, and what I was saying that you referenced, Chris, was that I disagreed with the way the court applied the Second Amendment in that case, because what the District of Columbia was trying to do was to protect toddlers from guns. And so they wanted people with guns to safely store them. And the court didn't accept that reasonable regulation, but they've accepted many others. So I see no conflict between saving people's lives and defending the Second Amendment.
Okay, fact check, a bunch of crap. It's a 110-page decision, the Heller versus D.C. decision. It never once mentions toddlers. The entire decision is about the idea that individuals do have the right to keep and bear arms, and that you can't force somebody to lock up a gun in their own home. And the person who actually filed the lawsuit in D.C. versus Heller was a 66-year-old retired policeman, not a guy with a toddler. So she's just making things up now because it's convenient for her politically. Now, what would have been nice is if we had a nominee who knew that. Unfortunately, we have a nominee who barely knows how to spell his own name. So here was Donald Trump's rebuttal of this.
Well, the D.C. versus Heller decision was very strongly, and she was extremely angry about it. I watched. I mean, she was very, very angry when upheld. And Justice Scalia was so involved, and it was a well-crafted decision. But Hillary was extremely upset, extremely angry, and people that believe in the Second Amendment and believe in it very strongly were very upset with what she had to say.
Okay, so he just says upset and angry over and over and over, and we're supposed to think that that's a wonderful response. This is the problem. It was really depressing. If we had a candidate who could string together a paragraph that made sense, Hillary would have been not only on the ropes, she would have been knocked clean through the ropes in all three of these debates. She can't defend herself. Every attack on her is a good attack. And you'll see, I mean, at a certain point in this debate, you'll see that she starts grinning like a crazy person, and that's her tell. Her tell is when she starts grinning like the evil clown who's emerging from the woods to kill a small child and eat it. That's when you know that she's being hit with something that's accurate. But I mean, that death glare that she's got on her face right here, that was her other look of the evening. So they move on from guns, and the next thing they do is they start talking about abortion. So first, Chris Wallace has to bully Trump into saying that he'll overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, a lot of people today are saying that Trump's answers on abortion were just the high point of this debate. They're the high point of Trump's candidacy. I didn't think so. The reason I didn't think so is because I actually care about the issue of abortion an awful lot, as you may have noticed, and never at any time that I can remember has a moderator ever asked a Democrat about partial birth abortion. Chris Wallace actually did, and Trump didn't do a very good job of slamming her over it. It was pretty weak tea. It also doesn't help that Donald Trump has a very weak pro-life record over the last 15 years. He went from, yes, partial birth abortion should be legal, to we should punish women for abortion. He doesn't know anything about the issue, and that was obvious here. Even his answer here was very weak on abortion. Here's Chris Wallace talking about Roe v. Wade.
Do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact, states a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that will go back to the individual states.
But I'm asking you specifically, would you like to...
If they overturned it, it'll go back to the states.
But what I'm asking you, sir, is do you want to see the court overturn? You just said you want to see the court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Okay, for people who actually care about things like pro-life, it'll go back to the states is not a good answer, okay? I don't want states green-lighting late-term abortion either. He's right, that's what Roe v. Wade does, but that's not the question. Right? The proper answer here is Roe v. Wade is a moral and legal abomination. I will appoint justices who will overturn it on the grounds that the Constitution never guarantees anybody's right to kill a child in the womb. End of story. End of story. but that wasn't Trump's answer. We'll get to Hillary's answer in just a minute. But first, we have a new advertiser. Hint Water is fantastic stuff. So Hint Water, if you are somebody who despises the taste of water, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. She really, really doesn't like water. It bores her. It bores most people. For a long time, we were using sparkling water. That didn't do it. Hint Water is great. It has kind of this taste of other tastes. They infuse natural flavors into the water. It's not sugar. It's additional flavor. They have pineapple and watermelon, crisp apple and blackberry. I've tried it. It's fantastic. It tastes great. We down pints of this stuff. It's very healthy, and it's really good for you. And right now, if you go to hint.com, hint.com/Ben, you get a variety pack shipped directly to your door. That's 3 bottles of each of those 4 flavors I just mentioned. Those are the most popular: pineapple, watermelon, crisp apple, and blackberry. Normally that's $24. Now it's just $15 at drinkhint.com/Ben. It's drinkhint.com/Ben. Make sure you use the /Ben so that you get that extra deal. And I can tell you, the water tastes great. I mean, Hint Water is really phenomenal stuff. It's healthy. And as I say, I only put the best food and drink into my kids, and I wouldn't give her Hint if I didn't think that it was both great for her and great tasting. She loves it. She loves Hint Water. So it's drinkhint.com/Ben. By the way, Health and Self magazines have named it the best flavored water that's on the market, and I can attest to that. I've tried pretty much all of them, and Hint Water is the best. Okay, so Hillary Clinton was asked about partial birth abortion. Here's Hillary Clinton saying something deeply wrong and evil because she's a Democrat, and that's what a lot of Democrats do.
You have been quoted as saying that the fetus has no constitutional rights. You also voted against a ban on late-term partial birth abortions. Why?
Because Roe v. Wade very clearly sets out that there can be regulations on abortion so long as the life and the health of the mother are taken into account. And when I voted as a senator, I did not think that that was the case. The kinds of cases that fall at the end of pregnancy are often the most heartbreaking, painful decisions for families to make. I have met...
She goes along these lines talking about these are heartbreaking, painful decisions. I'm sorry, but when you kill a baby at term, that is not a heartbreaking, painful decision. That is an act of moral cowardice and evil. Okay, you can't define away babies. I've seen 2 of them born at term. Right? I've seen both my kids. And it is a miracle, and those are babies. I mean, they come out, and those are human beings. And that's what Trump should say. Instead, what Trump says is something that's just, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's evocative language, but it doesn't mean anything because he doesn't know enough to say it. People were praising this last night. If you have one opportunity to make the pro-life argument on late-term abortion, and this is the best you can do, it's not a good answer because of what Hillary Clinton replies. I mean, this is, here it is.
Mr. Trump, your reaction, and particularly on this issue of late-term partial birth
Well,
abortion.
I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me. Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not acceptable.
Well,
and then Hillary responds this way.
Well, that is not what happens in these cases. And using that kind of scare rhetoric is just terribly unfortunate. You should meet with some of the women that I've met with, women I've known over the course of my life. This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make. And I do not believe the government should be making it.
Okay, again, this is the fact that Trump was not able to make the moral case here in stronger language. Actually, it makes my stomach hurt. It's I mean, she's making a moral argument that this is a difficult decision for women. The government shouldn't be involved. How can he not say at any time, this is a fully formed child and you're talking about redefining it as not human simply so that you can kill it? That's not about making a difficult decision. That's about denying the reality of a human being's life for whatever reason you seek. And it doesn't matter what your reasons are. Once you're talking about taking a baby and pulling it by the feet into the birth canal, this is what partial birth abortion is, and then jabbing a scissors into its skull, jabbing a hole up there, and then sucking its brains out because you want to pretend that that's not a child. And we know that that is a child. If you want to do that and say that that's okay, that is an act of deep moral evil. It's disgusting. And for you to sit there and pretend that there's a right in the Constitution of the United States to do that simply because you're a woman or simply because you feel like it is denying the humanity of the other. And you say that you want to protect people? Why don't you start with the most innocent people there are, babies that are in the womb? Why don't you start there? You know, for him not to be able to say that, again, that's not a complex argument. That's something I think that he could say. Instead, he talks about the graphic nature. He take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb. He's not even talking about killing the baby, right? I mean, like when he says take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb, he could be talking about a C-section, for God's sake. It's just it's stupid language. And again, it's a blown opportunity, and I feel like this entire election is a blown opportunity. It's really just it makes you a little bit. It makes me very upset. I mean, if this had been a debate with anybody with the capacity to make these arguments, Hillary would have been toast, and it wasn't. It's very upsetting. But that was not the high point or the low point for Trump. We will get back to that. Trump had some good points. He had some not so good points, and we'll get to the real headline of the day over at dailywire.com. Subscribe now, and you get a free copy of my book, True Allegiance, signed, and you also get to watch the rest of this live. You get to be part of the mailbag today. We're doing the mailbag today, taking live questions at dailywire.com, which is all very exciting, and you get Andrew Klavan's podcasts live as well. You get to be part of his mailbag. So lots going on at dailywire.com. New services being added all the time for the subscribers. Treat yourself. Become a subscriber at dailywire.com. And so you can continue listening and watching to The Ben Shapiro Show right here.